So yeah, the title of the presentation today is ensuring harmony between human and nature through peasant agroecology. That sounds a bit theoretical, but I really want to just share a concrete experience of the farm here. It's actually what I'm experiencing here, and that I think can be experienced everywhere. And I think it's really important to just share this kind of experience so that maybe you can get inspired or integrated to yeah, also try different life journeys than maybe the university or the society in general would suggest. So today I'm here to witness through the story of our family farm of the power of peasant farming to ensure this harmony between human and nature. First, I will
Vincent,
present. Yeah.
can you, because the terminology of peasantry here is not that well known, can you give first a short explanation or definition that divides farmers and peasant and of the peasantry in general? Sorry to
Yeah.
cut you though.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
For sure. So just a peasant farmer means yeah, it's kind of a criteria, a definition that is that focuses on the dynamic and the logic of the farmer. And a peasant farmer is differentiated, characterized by the idea of trying to be autonomous. So it's a kind of farmer that will tend to keep one's own seeds or to reproduce fertility of the soil with his own means, to try to favor natural cycles internal to the farm, to reproduce the inputs and the everything we need to produce food. And so yeah, these kind of farmers have a very strong relationship with their farm, their soil, and plant animals. um, and it's and then yeah, the peasant farmer will tend to sell what he produces or what or she produces to make a living. But maybe sometimes not everything of the yield is sold. Maybe sometimes they will tend to keep a part of the yield to feed their families or to feed their own animals or to reproduce seeds. Or and they tend to reproduce this kind of cycle. And this strength given by autonomy makes it a bit more resilient toward the external changes like a market price fall or a disease or a society change. And this is really important for us to have this kind of farming which is not really supported by industries or official governments that tend to push farmers to go for commercial farming with buying all the inputs, processing it, and then selling all the output. Here, the peasant farming is characterized by this really strong autonomy of the farm family as such. In short, I can put it like this, and we'll come back to these ideas later on and maybe in the next lecture as well. Adi, maybe can you take care of accepting the people joining?
Yeah,
And
I am.
yeah, sorry, I could. So yes, first I will present the evolution of, and then the current functioning of this farm and the future prospects as well, and then I will conclude with lessons we draw from this experience. Ancestors have been farming here in this area of Belgium for more than 250 years. And when my grandfather retired, they split the farm in two. My uncle he stayed in the main historical buildings, and my parents restored an abandoned farm at the other end of the land. And to begin almost a new farm in the mid-80s, they started to milk cows, and they wanted to be real champion dairy farmers. So in 82, and as you can see in the pictures, so they grew fodder maize in monoculture for silage, and they also grew highly fertilized ryegrass, so the grasses, the most productive grasses we can get here, and they were buying tons and tons of concentrates, soy mainly, but also alfalfa, rapeseed, every year to push every cow to its maximum production level. But 15 years later, in the mid 90s, soil erosion and compaction, weed resistance to herbicides, cow health vulnerability, and pesticide-related health problems convinced my parents to shift to organic farming with the same cows. And then, so in 97, we resowed all the pastures with more diverse plants, grasses, and legumes. And so you can see on the picture different clovers, different families of grasses, and we also started to grow our own concentrate instead of buying it. So you can see on the picture on the right, with this mixture of different cereals like rye, spelt, triticale, and different legumes. And all this system was then fertilized only with the cow manure. So really closing down the nutrient cycle instead of buying artificial fertilizers. Unfortunately, we were too few organic dairy farmers at that time, and our bargaining power with the industry was too low. We were only 5 farmers doing this way in the province. And so, to sell the milk as organic, the industry has to collect your milk separately from your neighbors. And so we were too few. They had to send a truck just for the 5 of us. And so then they stopped the contract, and then we had to choose either to go back to conventional, what we didn't want, or and expand, or to do something else. And as the farm was small, it's still the smallest farm of the village. My parents chose the second option, to do something else, and we sold all the cows, and we bought in 2002 a herd of dairy goats in France, and we installed a new milking parlor and equipment to milk. And we found a cheesemaker who was looking for organic goat milk, like 150 kilometers from here. The price he was offering was low, but yeah, it appeared to us to be a good opportunity to shift to the goats rather than the cows, because it was something different that that many people were doing at that time. But in order to keep our position with him, we had to increase the herd every year. And we first milked 150 goats, and then from year to year we had to increase because he wanted more and more milk. He didn't want to pay more. And in 2005, we were milking 220 goats, and we had to purchase a lot of feed again, because with that many goats we were not autonomous anymore. And in 2006, it was still not enough for him, and suddenly we lost the contract with him. And so again, a big questioning for my parents as well. And so my father went working outside in the city for a few years. He was 55-year-old already at that time. We sold most of the goats, and we had to reinvent the farm again. And by doing so, we gained feed autonomy again, because we reduced the number of goats. And we started to process our milk into cheeses ourselves. And then we started also to sell the cheeses directly to consumers. And we started to welcome children on the farm for educational activities. I will come back to this a bit later on. So children really saved the farm because they quickly made our cheeses known by their families, and so it was quite fast for us to reach new people to eat the cheese and to sell it. And my father could work full time on the farm again from 2008 onwards, and I took over the farm in 2016. So farm area is 23 hectares. It may be huge in your context, but like in this part of Belgium, average farm area is 56. So we are a bit under the half of the average. So it's a very small farm in this context. And from this 23 hectares, half of the land is arable and half of the land is covered by permanent pastures. So it's, with the fields with slopes or very clay soil that remain in pasture all the time. So how this works, I milk now 75 goats who graze diverse pastures composed of multiple grasses like fescue, timothy grass, um, different legumes. So you can see on the picture there is alfalfa, lucerne, red, white, and hybrid clover. Also, we include deep rooting herbs like chicory or plantain. And these plants, they help us to cope with the drought. With climate change, you can see on the lower picture that climate change is really hitting the pastures here. We have a drier and drier summer compared to the past, much less rain in the summer. Although we are quite close to the sea, and we were used to have a very changing weather. And so these deep rooting herbs are really important in the pastures to cope with the drought. These deep rooting herbs, they also bring a lot of minerals from the deep soil to the goats, and they help us to reduce parasitic pressure on the animals. So they improve goats' health as well. And so in this aim, we practice a rotational and mixed grazing, with the horses and the donkeys. We keep for children because horses and donkeys, they are eating grass, but they are not ruminants. So they have different families of parasites. So when you mixed and you turn with different families of animals, then you can really reduce parasite pressure in the pastures. During the nights, rainy days, and winter, the goats are fed with hay and are kept inside on a free-range straw bedding, as you can see here in the picture. We recently started to harvest a part of the hay in bulk to keep it greener and richer in proteins. And we built a removable structure to store it inside in aerated conditions. Goats left over, so what they don't eat, because goats are a bit princesses. They really like to sort what they eat, and everything they don't eat is fed to the horses and donkeys. So every feed we produce is then valued in good manure. Nothing is lost in the cycle. That's very important for us. We also grow a grain mixture composed of white oats, naked oats, spelt, triticale, rye, peas, and vetches, and fertilized with the goat's manure. And so this mixture, I keep my own seeds and I mix it myself. And it's resown every year to provide the concentrates of the goats. So we harvest it, we store it on the farm. I don't sell it, and we roll it twice a week, and it's given So it's rolled like a rolled oats somehow, and it's given during milking to lactating goats. We milk them twice a day, and so all their manure goes back to the fields. And 4 years ago, we're starting to make bokashi. So instead of composting the manure, we make now a kind of silage of manure that we inoculate with the whey, the lactoserum. So it's a byproduct of cheese making. When you turn milk into cheese, there is a kind of liquid that remains that is full of bacteria, and we use this very acidic liquid to inoculate the manure, and then we make a kind of silage with this. And this technique really prevents nitrogen and carbon losses in the system. So it allows me to keep more energy in my farming system. All the milk of the goats is processed into about 10 different cheeses. And as you can see here on the picture, and we extended the cheese making room 4 years ago. So now I can be helped by extra workforce I hire. We sell the cheese on the local market in the town every Saturday. It's Saturday morning, a weekly market in the town. And I also sell the cheese to independent shops, no supermarkets, but independent shops, just like small shops. Colleagues who have farm shops. My farm is too far from the village, so I don't have a shop on the farm. But I have colleagues whose farms are more in the villages and they have farm shops. I also sell to restaurants or pizzeria and other more food truck or whatever. So that is the different cheeses. And we also prepare orders for people. They can come and pick their cheese order in the village, so they don't have to come to the farm. We plant many trees every year. It's a way for me to invest my savings, mainly fruit trees, berries, but also wood fuel. And for the trees, so trees that the goats are going to browse to eat. So this, by planting trees, we add next to the same land. It's bringing more added value on the same piece of land again. And we already have a demand for organic fruits on the local market. And also for me, producing fruits, I'm not sure I'm going to sell all of it, but part of the fruits will be used to thank people who volunteers that come sometimes to the farm to give a help. And having good organic fruits on the farm is a good way also to thank them for coming and helping us sometimes. Another very important part of the farm is the educational activities. So it has been a way for us to value farm and landscape constraints into opportunities. Every year, we welcome about 1,500 children and students on the farm. And I would like to give you a broad picture of all we can learn on a farm, from kindergarten to university. And I think really that farms offer unique opportunities to experience our vital connection with Mother Earth, like to touch, to smell, to feel, taste, observe the animals, the soil, the mud, the hay, the grain, the flowers, the trees, to taste the raw milk, the cheese, to see the birds. I mean, there's plenty of experiences that a farm can provide. And I think it's of great importance for sensory and psychomotor development of the children, as well as for the immune system. Walking on a irregular ground, muddy, slippery path, standing up on a horse to do kind of gym, horse riding, to pet animals, being in contact with the dust, the mud, being free to run. These are very important for children and for bigger children as well. And I think that, and it's now scientifically proven that being in contact with mission of our patient, our dedication, and also our labor culture that is really characterized of a big characteristic of peasant culture. They learn about agroecological techniques, organic farming, farming system thinking, but also political issues such as the peasants' rights or food politics. And most importantly, they learn to deal with living beings, with plants, animals. They do develop care, empathy, patience, peacefulness. They understand the needs of animals. They see a birth, growth, and death of animals. I think it's really an important part of their learning on about life, generally speaking. Educational farms are not zoos, or there is a really active, dynamic relationship going on. No, it's a productive farm, so it's not just observing from far away animals. It's a much more dynamic relationship, and there are many reciprocities, complicity, symbiosis. Somehow, we do something to each other with other living beings. It's totally different than what the European children can experience with animals, for instance, in zoos or parks or whatever. So yeah, educational farms are extremely relevant and low-tech solutions for the education and development of both rural and urban youth. We also have a close relationship with a network of like-minded colleagues, urban food movements, scientists, and environmental organizations to develop further the many novelties we want and we develop here on the farm to gain autonomy. Um, yeah, to conclude, for me, it's really possible to make a decent income and even create rural jobs on small farms with modest means, thanks to this ongoing development of multiple novelties achieved through the on observations, trials and errors, or on labor investments and various partnerships we have among farmers, colleagues, and with scientists and other activities. That it's a broad network that is really important for us. For me, farming is first a human fundamental right. We peasants, we are warrants for feeding our communities in a healthy and sustainable manner by making each piece of land we are granted of nourishing, which is both a commitment and a huge challenge. I really invite you to learn more about the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants. Maybe with Adi, we were thinking about programming another lecture on this topic. And yeah, it's a big international tool that knows really gives credit to this all the issues I'm mentioning here today. Secondly, farming for me is an essential activity in society that both generates and reproduces added value, labor income, human values and knowledge far beyond the degrading role of subordinates of patented science and technology. Household savings and decisional autonomy have been critical resources for our family and are too often neglected in farming policies. Finally, peasant farming is characterized by this unique dedication and the many ingredients given to our food that scale enlargement, automation, or mechanization will never replace. Or attention, or observation, or sensitiveness, or experience, or trials, or love, or belief, knowledge, and know-how, or availability, or presence. We peasants, we are called to embody a form of permanence, aligned in the time of soils, plants, trees, and herds, which responds to a very deep need expressed by children and students, consumer we meet here, for wisdom, presence, and continuity. We may call them human roots. Thus, I think that peasant farming offers a fascinating and even adventurous, non-violent life journey made of intense reciprocities and complicity with all living beings of the farm. I really thank you for your attention. I welcome any question or comment you may have.
Okay, thank you, Vincent or Fang Song. I'll just use English version, okay? Thank you for sharing your experience with us. As we can hear from Vincent, that being a peasant is not an easy job, even in a developed country such as Belgium, right? We can see from his farm history that reclaiming autonomy as a peasant or requires a lot of dedication and a lot of innovation in the process, right, Vincent?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I have some questions, but I will ask the audience first. I will give the opportunity to our audience first to ask questions. So go ahead. If there's any questions, you can directly ask. Raise your hand and ask to Vincent. Are you having beers at this time? It's still
No,
early.
not yet.
Oh no.
Just water.
Coffee, bro. Coffee. Okay. Are there any questions?
Someone raised a hand.
Atar is raising hand, Adi.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Atar. Go ahead,
Can
Atar.
you hear my voice?
Yeah.
I'm using different device to speak because in my laptop it's non-functioning. Permission to ask Mr. Delobel and Mr. Adi. My name is Atarizan Kautsar, and I am very curious about what is your recent tantangan apa bahasa Inggrisnya? Recent
Challenges.
difficulties you're having in your farm, and do you have any further plan to increase the magnitude of your farm to probably increase the farm outcome from your grains to be able to sell it as a feed to another farmers or another farmers, or maybe sell your goats or any other development strategy, and also if you have any further development strategies or plan that you want to incorporate that into your farm, do you need another, or do you usually cooperate with another stakeholders in your country, if that is your plan? Or if not, then how will you able to implement the plan that you are thinking for the future? That's for me. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Right. Do you want to respond now, Vincent?
Yeah, maybe I can quickly respond to this one. So yeah, thanks for the question. If I have to focus on one or two very recent challenge or difficulty, would be, I think you've heard about this, but this huge increase of the price of energy here in Europe, related to the war in Ukraine and whatever. And so, yeah, for instance, now costs 3-4 times more than 1 year ago. The fuel for tractors, it costs the double. So it's a big challenge for all the farmers. And so again, autonomy is only defense. I'm really happy I have solar panels on my farm, so I produce 2/3 of my own electricity I need, and I consume a very small quantity of fuels because I use old tractors and small machinery. It's very economical to do it, and I don't purchase feed or fertilizers. Again, the price has been increasing like incredibly high, and yeah, I'm really lucky. I have an autonomous system because I'm not impacted that strongly by these market changes. So that's really important for us. Another difficulty, slightly related to the first, is that the purchasing power of consumers in Europe is decreasing very fast because people have to heat their homes with the energy costs much more, so they have less money available for food. And so it's another big issue for us, especially with the organic products or the slightly differentiated products. It's not the lowest price product, and so it is a challenge now to find new ways of selling the cheeses, or we have to be very strong in calculating cost of production because it's changing, and we have to increase a bit the prices, but not too much so that people can still afford to buy it. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, and what we do is really the power of the network. We have very strong networks here of farmers, but also with scientists and official organizations that really help us and contribute to a new arrangement we developed, like for very recently with 25 other colleagues. We created a cooperative to gather our sales and to be able to sell also to bigger consumers, like school canteens or collective food provisioners, like the hospitals, where there are many people, they need a lot of food there at once. An individual producer, we cannot sell, we cannot respond to that demand. But if we get together and we group our production, we can deliver enough quantity to respond to a demand from a bigger institution like a hospital, a big school, or a bigger buyer of products. That's really important. Both the network really to develop the technologies, but also to develop the sales and the trade. It's really important to get together. Another thing is that this winter with 3 other colleagues, we bought together a seed sorter, small machines that helps to clean the seeds and remove weeds. And we bought a very good one, and we can afford it because we buy it together. Individually, we couldn't. And it's again a form of cooperation and networking, which is very important. And there is a big, quite a new trend is also the use of smartphones and like WhatsApp groups or whatever, that we really use to share information on the price, but also ideas of techniques, and it's a good means for us to communicate easily, even in remote areas, or with people like me that we have a lot of work, and so we cannot move to each other farm easily. But with this, we can communicate easily, even if we don't have time to go or to meet physically. So that among the strategies we have.
Okay, Atar, how is it? Do you have any further comment?
All right. That is very interesting to know and to find out that the farmers, no, the buying of the consumer in the Europe is declining because of the energy. Yeah, I suppose that is a there's a big problem that the farmers in the region needs to figure it out. But I'm kind of curious about the you just said that there was a climate change that reduces the feed, the grain from your plantation. Is that still a problem to you?
So climate change is mainly affecting, yeah, for us at the moment is the rainfall that changes mainly. Instead of having small rains frequently, we have big periods without rain and then suddenly have very heavy rains and sometimes floods. And so, yeah, the solution to that is to plant more deep rooting grasses and herbs, and also to plant trees and hedges around the fields to really have a more resilient ecological infrastructure around the fields and the pastures. We sometimes have heat waves as well. That fortunately the goats they deal well with heat waves, but colleagues with cows they have big difficulties because the cows they don't like extremely high temperatures. We have here a special breed of very big cows for meat, the white bloods, and it's very big animals, and they really don't cope well with heat waves. So yeah, it's really important for us to build this ecological infrastructure around the farm to protect it as we can. I mean, we cannot prevent everything, but it's what we can do.
All right. Thank you very much. That satisfies my curiosity. Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent, and thank you very much, Mr. Adi, for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Atta.
Thanks.
So from that discussion, we already we can also see that how the peasantry helps the farm to go through the many kinds of agricultural pressures, from climate change to recession so it's more resilient, right, Vincent?
Yeah, exactly.
And we will talk about that later in the second lecture more, maybe like a little bit of theoretical framework for that. Yeah,
for sure. It's really the solution for us to go that way. All the crises we know start to encounter really pushes us to go in that direction.
Okay, so for the next question is from Hari.
Okay, thank you for
please continue.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Vincent, for your explanation about your experience too. We all know that Indonesian milk is 80% is from import. The first country is US, and the second country in Europe, and maybe Belgium is one of them. And I'm just so curious that you produce milk too. My question is so simple that what the key success from you when we produce the milk, because our Ministry of State-owned enterprise want to produce it too in Indonesia, so we can produce it independently and no depending on the import, because we all know that the recession is coming, and we will to produce it independent in our country. Maybe that's all.
Great, very good question. I think that you could also produce a lot of milk in Indonesia. I mean, it's a very huge country with so different climates and settings. I think there must be niches to do so. But what is really important now to have in mind, whatever the production is, but especially for the dairy, is that now our generation, we really have to think food production with the practices and the production systems that are as much as possible disconnected to fossil fuels. And it's a bit the collapse now of this European or Western intensive dairy farming, which is extremely dependent on fossil fuel energies, with a lot of artificial fertilizers on the grasses, with very high protein rich feed rations based mainly on the imports of Brazilian or South American soy, with the monoculture of maize in Europe, which is very intense in tillage, so in fuel, in fertilizers, in herbicides, and then these we have now a huge, even more in Holland than in Belgium, but still very big stables with hundreds and hundreds of cows at the same place that do not go outside. So they are kept inside. So you need to bring the feed, get the manure out. So it also requires a lot of energy. It's much more simple when the goats or the cows, they go and graze and poo themselves in the grass. You cannot do more economical than this. And then they have a lot of milk production at one place that needs to be cooled down, in a cool temperature, so the milk preserves. And for instance, here, when the milk is warm, just we got it from the animal, we immediately put the ferment and the rennet and make the cheese. So in terms of energy, we try to keep the flow going on, and we do not spend energy in cooling and then warming up the milk again or transporting the milk, whatever. So I think it's really, really important to think much more economical than what they did with this intensive system, and try to make your animals fed with the most simple feed as possible. Do not rely on imports for feeding cows or goats. You can find a lot of material around you, like the slopes, the grass, but maybe also some trees or some leftovers from other food production, crop residues or whatever that may be available and could be used. So by this system, we tend to make the feeding costs as low as possible, and then to have really not rustic but resilient animals. No, in the past, my father, he had this very highly producing cows, like the Holstein cows, the white and black cows. They produce a lot, but they are very, very fragile. Every change in the weather or the feed, they get diseases, and then you need antibiotics and a lot of minerals and vitamins to supplement. It's very expensive as well. So it's much more economical to have slightly less producing but much more resilient animals. And with this the system here with the goats, we produce about 30% less milk per animal, but the milk is richer in fat and protein, and the animals, they live twice longer. So it costs less in replacing the cows or the goats. So it's very important to have long-living animals with simply fed, that produce a very rich milk, and that can provide high added value to the farm, because when the milk is rich, it has a lot of density, if you want, and it's very important for the cheese making, for good taste, and that you can sell it at a correct price. When you have a lot of production, sometimes you are locked down with this big volume, and you are forced to sell it a very, very low or even not sufficient price to get rid of it, and then you're locked industry that has to transport tons of milk, which is not dense, which is very energy demanding. So I think it's really, really important to rethink the dairy production. Broadly speaking, it makes me think that we wrote a very short text together with Van der Ploeg and another Belgian scientist. I can send it to you, Adi, and you can share it with the students on this alternative dairy farming systems.
Yeah. You get it, Hari?
Okay, that's all clear, all good. And thank you, Mr. Vincent, for the explanation.
The pleasure.
Right.
Thanks.
So yeah, we have to stay out of the fossil fuel as far as we can, I don't know if that's possible in our country though, as you know, our farm size is like half of hectare or something in average. Do you think there's an optimal size for that to be feasible, or?
No, because this farm size will be different in different settings. What we observe here is that we can make a living on a smaller farm thanks to this kind of systems, and versus in the intensive, let's say the Dutch typical system, from decade to decade, the farm has to increase to survive. We expand to survive, otherwise it disappears. And here, farm size has not changed for 50 years, and we are still there and make a living. So it's really important, socially speaking, that we opt for systems that do not have farm expansion as a strategy or a need. Otherwise, there would not be room for everyone, or people will have to leave the countryside because they will not have their job on the small farm. And so it's very important to think small, or systems that can sustain and evolve through over time, without always this need to get big or get out. That's also something I would like to focus on a second lecture.
Not too capitalistic, huh? Get big or get out. All right. Okay, thank you, Vincent. Are there any more questions from others? Rai, you have any questions?
Oh, okay. Hello, Mr. Delobel. My name is Rai, and I'm sorry I can't turn on my camera due to technical difficulties. Thank you for sharing your experience in farming with us. But there's something that I want to ask, but I think it is a bit similar with Mr. Adis. Your conclusion stated that it is possible to make decent income in farming. But as far as we know, the condition, the farming condition in Indonesia and Belgium is different. You said that the average land position on Belgium is twice yours, which is 23 hectare, but in Indonesia only half hectare. And I think it's not only about the land position, but also based on my experience, a lot of farmers in Indonesia really rely on market to procure their farming input. And I think only a small percent of them can sell produce, and also they can't even buy new farming. And also I think they can't even buy new one to increase their production using the income from farming. With that condition, do you think peasant style farming is still profitable in Indonesia, or maybe it's only farming only profits in Indonesia only if it is in commercial state? Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Did you get the question, Vincent?
Yeah. And I think it's really important what you mentioned, and it's a big challenge here and really a strategy for me, to link peasant movements or together with social movements. Like we can make already this big challenge of, as peasants, of producing better food in a more sustainable manner to let's say a fair price, but we cannot resolve all society problems on our own. And it's been the big mistake European countries did. They started to give a lot of subsidies to farming in order to make farmers accept to produce for a very, very cheap price, so that the inequalities of income in the rest of society can be accepted because people can still be fed. And so the official European historical strategy was to buy peace, let's say, by providing farming subsidies to make us more or less survive while producing at a very low price. And it's a bit cynic strategy, but it's it worked until now. And I think it's in a developing country, for instance, where there is not money to provide that much farming subsidies, it can be a very big problem. And so it's very important for us now to publicize and to show to the rest of society all these efforts we do to provide in a different manner, but with much better quality, with a resilient provisioning that is quite resilient towards external market shocks or war in the part of the world or whatever, in a very sustainable and resilient manner, food provision. But then, there is a certain price. We cannot produce for very cheap because there is, other criteria behind. And then the rest of the challenge is to be resolved by the rest of society. We the farming sector or the farming families, we cannot resolve all society problems. And that's very important for us now to get together with other social movements that for more social justice in the rest of society and better wages and protections, for the workers of the low class, so they get a more decent income from their work to be able to buy what we produce. And it's, I think, really important to be in good communication with these movements, and so that the officials and the governments, they can see the link, and sometimes they will be pushed to change their ways in the politics, so that the society can be connected again. Otherwise, yes, I really witness what you are saying here with the recession and this crisis. It's exactly the same problem, that we make a lot of efforts to produce in a better way and more resilient, but still a part of the very lowest part of the population cannot afford to buy this, and this we cannot resolve everything ourselves, and it's sometimes societal or political will that is an action that are needed to change this. So I think it's important to do this, let's say, political bridge, and also this new cooperative we are leading here to provide a collective food catering, like hospitals or schools. It's also a way to reach lower class people that would not be able to buy all food individually because they have a too low income, but through low, like public institutions like hospitals or whatever, or schools, we can reach and feed them with better products. It's a strategy. It does not answer to all the problems, but it's an attempt to deal with this very, very critical issue I'm mentioning.
Okay, thanks, man. It's I don't know. We have the Lafia Campesina here are called SPI, Serikat Petani Indonesia, but we are not very well. I don't know them much. I only knew Henry as the leader, but I haven't been involved in their movements for a long time, and I don't even know what they are doing. But there in Belgium, the Lafia Campesina is doing the have some impact on the peasant life, or
yes,
how the mechanism works, or is it a material for the next lecture?
Yes, we can do it as well, but it's, I think, really important. It's a very big part of the involvement into peasant movement is to also bridge with other social movements to bring coherence in what we demand and what we want for. I think it's really important to avoid division of this politics. Otherwise, we are going to lose. It's really important to get together and to build coherent and a long run demands to the politicians.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, are there any other questions from Kang Dika or Kang Andi, maybe?
Itu mau ngechat tadinya ke itu, tapi trouble ini WA-nya nggak keluar di chat itu. Jadi kalau saya nanya ke dia, takutnya yang lain nggak ngerti, tapi saya
Nggak apa-apa, Kang.
nggak apa, oke.
Can you answer in English? He will ask in French.
Okay.
Ok,
Yeah.
bon, merci. Tu m'entends toi? Tu m'entends?
Très bien.
Ouais, ouais. Bon,
Parfait.
c'est
Merci.
possible. Tu tutoyer, ça va? Ça va vous
Oui,
voyez?
bien sûr.
Ok, bon. Bon, j'aimerais bien savoir, quelle est ton opinion sur la définition de de paysan et agriculture? C'est-à-dire, c'est l'aspect seulement technologie et la production factor ou d'autres paramètres, par exemple, les relations entre acteurs comme humains. Parce que dans le concept de permaculture, c'est toujours la question, c'est pas l'organique et organique, mais la question de l'éthique de humain pour continuer son business. Comment ton opinion? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. So the question was about how do we differentiate peasant farming from the rest of agriculture, and what is really the definition. And I often tell students that in agriculture, we have to keep the two eyes open. One on the farming practices, the systems, the techniques, the nutrient cycles, the annual versus perennial crops, the animals, etc. All this, and another eye open on the social and economical organization of farming. And peasant farming is more a social definition. It's, there are peasants who have half an hectare. There are peasants who have 200 hectares. There are peasants who have animals, or not. Some are organic, so other not. Peasantry is a concept to define how the farm is organized socially and economically. So who is the owner of the land, or who is the owner of the buildings, the animals, the seeds, who does what in terms of labor and tasks, what are the relationships within the family or with the landowner or with the commercial who is buying, or the consumers. So yeah, it's a definition, not on the scale, not on the farming practices as such, but more on the logic, so the mental organization of the farm. Oh, I'm thinking in cycles, I'm thinking in autonomy, in resilience, in grounding my strength on my own resource base, my soil, my animals, my plants, more than always being looking for new technology outside, or new seeds, or a new tractor, or to do always marketing new products or new consumers. No, I'm more thinking internally with all the novelties, the new techniques, the new changes I can do within the farm and the farm family. So it's more a question of logic, mental organization of the farm, of relationships, ownership, labor relationships, commercial relationships, and also, and that's a part I really like, is this relationship with the resource base, and I'd say a cultural trait that is very strong now and really reinforcing these last years here in our context is the observation. Farmers who love their animals, they will spend hours and hours walking in the grasslands or with the animals to see, observe, smell. So I would say persons much more receptive, with much more attention given to the small symptoms or signals that the living beings provide them, instead of always being looking on the market prices or the new technologies commercial are trying to sell them, information from outside, but much more the scope of relevance. So what the farmers are focusing on is much more on the internal dynamics of the farm instead of always looking for outside for solutions or maybe other fears or whatever. So it's much more social. It's more a definition related to the human component, the human gradients of the farm.
Ok, merci beaucoup Vincent. Ben, j'aimerais bien un jour, tu vas venir ici en Indonésie, ben, on peut se voir, parler un petit peu, parce que j'aimerais bien savoir aussi la différence aujourd'hui, l'agriculture en Belge ou en Dutch, ouais. Si on compare avec par exemple, le paysan aujourd'hui Vietnam ou Chinese est tout à fait différent.
Ouais.
Mais j'espère un jour tu vas venir ici à Adi, ben, on se voit ici à Bandung, bavarder un peu plus.
Avec plaisir.
Merci.
Avec plaisir.
Terima kasih, Di.
Iya, iya sama-sama Kang. Kang Dika ada Kang Dika? Apa
Yes.
mau ya?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm experiencing bad internet connection, so I follow the discussion imperfectly. So, I hope that my question to Vincent can go smoothly. So thank you for this. I think this striking alternative ideas about develop autonomy of peasants. You state here the idea is about re-peasantization, right? So how to develop the I don't know how to read it, peasant or paisan. So this is to develop the peasant system of agricultural production system, something like that. I'm curious with several basic information about the farming that you operated. The first one, you state previously that there is a succession from your grandfather to your father and your uncle, I think. So it is something which is common also in Indonesia. You stated that there is a separation of a land occupation from your grandfather to your father, which is a kind of segregation, I think. Previously, it is larger and then it becomes smaller. So is it also common in Belgium? That is my first question. And then I'm curious also about the family, how many family members involved in the farming that you operated now. I'm interested in the idea of cooperation and collaboration among paisan in Belgium. You say that there are, if I'm not mistaken, about 50 or 50 other paisan in collaboration with you in order to make a cooperative, if I'm mistaken. Was it successful to operate? Because you know that the idea of farmer groups in Indonesia has been developed for several years ago. However, the success of the farmer group operation somewhat about question mark, because the farmer groups is in there, but it is not operated well. So how about the cooperatives or the farmer groups or the paisan groups in Belgium? How about the condition in recent situation? Thank you, Vincent.
Thanks a lot. So I see 3 points. First, about the representation. First, it's really important to know that it's not an official political or official strategy. Representation, you know, this new branding of peasantry within European farming is some things that came spontaneously. It's spontaneous farmers' responses to the crisis produced by agriculture modernization. So it's in response to the modern problems, the problems created by modernization, that farmers develop these peasant-like strategies of keeping their seeds, their fertility, etc., etc. So it's really important to know. And so in some parts of the country of France, it appears. In other parts, you only observe the depeasantization with this disappearance of farming families. So yeah, it's not a plan, a strategy, or official plan. It's sometimes that comes from the will of individual farmers or farming families to survive or to struggle for another future than what the modernization would have given to them. So that's very important. The second point related to access to land. It's true that the land is given, often the access to the land is given by the ancestors or the grandfathers, etc. But keep in mind that we are actually renting the land. I'm owning a small part, like 10% of the land I grow, but the rest I am renting it. And what is often and land ownership, it can be farming families, but also some industries or the church or a big old rich families who own the land. But when we say the origin of the word farmer came from renting is a farmer is a renting peasant somehow, or and not owner. And so we inherit from access to the land mainly when we inherit a renting contract more than ownership. And so renting can be stopped at some point by the landowner, and the landowner can give sometimes access to another farmer or someone who does not have access to land yet. So it's the segregation process is not that strong. It is somehow appearing, but it's not definitive because it's not ownership, and so it's not immediately connected to private ownership, and so changes can happen quite easily. There is also a big part of the land who is owned by public institutions, and so with this cooperative and all the peasant movements, we are pushing public institutions who have land in their belongings to give it, to rent it in preference to young farmers or young farmers who are not from farming families, And so it's a new trend, but we are really pushing for it. And some public institutions now start thinking, and they do rent their land in favor of people who do not have this family heritage, for instance. And the third and point you mentioned is about the workload and the cooperation. And it's at the moment I work mainly alone. I have someone I hire working part-time on the farm. My parents too, they are 70-year-olds, but they still give a good hand when they can. And around this, I have, and it's really a strength of the farm. There's a bit a supporting community of friends or people who really like what we do, or the parents of the children coming, or children that grew up and still want to come and help, and who come. All these people, they can come for punctual. When there is a big job to be done that requires many people, we are connected to, let's say, a form of community of people that can come to and give help for occasional tasks, and that's really important. And also, as you mentioned, and it's the cooperation between farmers, and which is really important. And again, like the seed sorter or whatever, we exchange time together, and it's really important for us to save labor as well, sometimes to do the job for the two of us instead of doing it individually. And more broadly speaking, what I want to stress here is this farming cooperation has not been supported by officials for these last decades. Uh, the European farming policies really focused on individual farmers working individually for their own and not in corporation. And it's relatively new and still weak that they start to support cooperation between farmers. I think it's ideologically quite related to the market thinking that we need individual competitors, and it is a part of it's partly true, but we also need along this some forms of cooperations. And in the culture and the mindset of people, the individualistic thinking is a bit too strong, and it's really important now to recreate trust between them, so they can share about um, their success or about their problems, or to help each other, to have reciprocities. We have a kind of a cultural shift to be done, so farmers start cooperating again together, because in the last decades culturally it was not supported to cooperate. So I think we have a lot to learn from developing countries, and especially also in South America there are plenty of new forms of corporations that are really, really interesting, and we are not championing it at all. Thanks you for your question.
Thank you. Well, it's a bit surprising, I think, because I hear that in several countries in Europe, for example, in the Netherlands, I hear that there are several agri-based big company owned by the cooperatives. So I thought previously that perhaps it is also happened in Belgium. So it's
and it's and there are in France as well. But the issue is that these big cooperatives, they just turn in their functionings and their strategies, they just run like individual commercial companies. And most of them, not all of them, but most of them, they lost the added value somehow. And so, for instance, in dairy farming, we have big rises in terms of the price.
Yeah.
And most of the companies are cooperatives, but still they behave or they trade as commercial, pure commercial companies. And it's a big nightmare because they are made thanks to the savings and the money of the farmers, and they do not serve them, and they do not defend them properly. And so, there are sometimes very big conflicts in these companies, because they are supposed, and historically they were cooperatives, but the way they are trading is not in favor of the small producers. For instance, many big dairy cooperatives, they were giving more a higher price to bigger producers than to smaller ones, and which really pushes towards the disappearance of smaller producers. And so it's not what could expect from a cooperative. So the official status of cooperative is one thing, but their trading strategy and ethics is something else. And often the second one is missing.
Okay, thank you for the information. Thank you, Padi.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Yeah, I'm also as surprised as Kang Dika to hear that. I thought you guys are really well grounded with the cooperatives, but it seems it's not that well grounded. maybe we can learn something from Elske later about how they manage to do it in the Netherlands. She told me she will join us today, but I don't see her now. Maybe she has something to do, but maybe in the next lecture. Yeah. Do you still have time, or do you need to go to work?
Yeah, a little like 10 minutes I can do.
Yeah, okay, 10 minutes. Maybe last question. Are there any questions from other? I don't see any hands raised. Maybe a closure from you, Vincent. This is also a basic question from me, but what made you decide to go back to your own farm? We both know that we studied in the same class, and you're one of the brightest student in the class. But then you chose to be a farmer, not like you. I see you to become a potential leaders in the European Union, for example. You know, with your critiques, your brain works like really hard. Even at your farming, you know all the stuff. You know all how to manage the micronutrients, for example, how the energy flow, and you incorporate those into your farming system. Like you're not an average farmer, let's admit it.
I
But
have the
what
same
makes you?
question as
Apa, Kang Lia?
I have the same question as Adi.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's pretty incredible. So
I think it's it has always been clear to me. I didn't have to make a big decision. Even before going to Wageningen, it was clear to me that I wanted to take over the farm. And it's also, sometimes you decide what you do with your life. And I enjoy much more being every day in contact with the animal, the soil, the plant, and playing with this. And maybe it's this deep involvement in the real running of a farm that gives strength and experience as well. And so I don't have to talk about things I don't know, or on in French we would say above someone else's shoulders. I can speak to farmers as direct colleagues, and it's really important for us. I just beside the farm, I spend a lot of time as a volunteer, but in different organizations. I'm a board member of 3 organizations. First is a local cooperative that is making a lot of changes here in the town around it. As also an example, a new way of doing cooperatives in the sector. I'm board member of FUGEA, which is social peasant movement, peasant union, the equivalent of SPI, if you want, in our area. Member of La Via Campesina, for which I took part in this Human Rights Council working group on the Declaration on the Rights of Peasants with Henry and others. And the third organization I'm a board member of is a new one, which is organization that helps farmers to change their farming system, but with holistic support. At the moment, there are a lot of public or private organizations that can provide information and technical supports to farmers, but often they always have their own topic or domain of interest, but no one is able to support the farming family in the whole process of rethinking the organization of the farm, but also the communication or the sales, the trade. And from the soil to the end product support on technical, but also on the social, commercial, communication domain needs. So yeah, it's 3 organizations that I'm really involved in, and yeah, I think it's my place to be here. We meet a lot of students, of children, of consumers. Many sometimes the politicians also come and visit to learn or to try to understand better. I feel much more confident and yeah, in my role being a farmer while trying to make a change in the broader society. It's actually a very good role, and I really, really suggest all the students to also go that way, to have a concrete daily tasks and job and function within the living systems.
Yeah.
It gives you much more strong inspiration and confidence in what you think, what you want. But you know, we are a very changing time now with this climate change, social crisis. Many people of my age in the country go burnout, you know, with their administrative or computer job, and I think it's very important to reproduce this kind of lifestyle, which is quite different and can give you, yeah, much more strength and confidence in what we need and where we should go for. Because we don't know where climate change is going to bring us, you know, at some point.
Yeah.
So it's important to have good roots somehow.
Not to talk about the nuclear war coming, huh?
That's something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it really depends on what you like, and then it really depends on who you deal with every day. You're active in an organization that maybe brought some influence on you, but the core is maybe because you grew up in a farming family and you have the obligations to take over the farm, and you have the heart to run it very well, I guess. It's really well. So yeah, thank you for your insights, Vincent. Maybe we can do another lecture on 8th of November.
Yeah, well, I was suggesting maybe
Okay.
focusing
Kang
on
Dika,
the.
is it okay?
I'm okay. That's good.
Kang Andi, is it okay if we have second lecture tanggal 8 November, Kang?
Ya, ada.
Tapi 8th of November is in Saturday, man.
Rồi.
No.
Yes.
Oh?
This.
Oh, no.
It's Tuesday.
8th of November is Tuesday, yeah,
Tuesday.
okay.
Tuesday.
Next 2 weeks, yeah.
It's okay.
Siap, Kang?
Oh.
Nggak apa-apa?
Hah?
Nggak apa-apa, yang keduanya nanti tanggal 8 November.
Oh, Pang Sang juga yang nanti bicara.
Iya, langsung.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can also invite Pluch and Elske at 8th of November. And have you talked to him recently, or I will email? I'll just email
not
him.
very recently, but like one month ago or 2 months ago, not earlier.
Last time he contacted me was on Christmas. He said Merry Christmas, and then nothing more.
Maybe yeah, it could be a good try to get them on board.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will prepare some materials related to the innovation and novelty production of how we do innovate with this peasant farming systems, and also related to that the rights of peasants, related to this declaration. All these freedoms and protections are needed to sustain this peasant farming.
Right.
Dia sekarang jadi petani juga ya?
Siapa, Kang?
Ini Pang Sang enggak?
Iya, petani.
Iya.
Di farm dia.
Voilà. C'est bien, maintenant j'ai entendu dire que vous êtes comme un farmer. Ouais. Voilà, c'est très bien.
Merci.
Il y a beaucoup de jeunes maintenant qui viennent retourner au village pour développer le village.
Well,
Ouais.
That's a new trend also, and it's very important. For instance, in Belgium, 2/3 of farmers are more than 50-year-old. So it's really important now that a new generation is coming. Otherwise, I don't know where we're going.
We have the same situation here, Vince. So yeah, That's why we need you to inspire our students
Mm.
to be more involved in farming when they're graduated, hopefully.
Nah,
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Gimana, Kang,
again,
ada lagi,
thanks a lot for the invitation, and it was really a pleasure to share with all of you.
Likewise, bro. Yeah.
Would be a
I'm still
pleasure
waiting for Rafael and Abdu to join. He said he want to bring maybe in next lecture, because Abdu is also doing the same in Kuwait,
Yeah,
okay,
and Rafael is also doing the same in France,
okay.
and then Elske is also doing the same in the Netherlands. So why not we share all of their experience, and maybe we can also share in the end our experience in Indonesia on how to do it,
sure.
and you can join us. Okay.
Great. Mm.
I hope you will have time and you won't get bothered later.
No, no worry.
Okay. Thank you, Vincent,
Thanks a
once
lot.
again.
Yeah,
I will stop recording now and I will close the session.
thanks to all the
and then-
students and participating.
Yeah. And then later we will meet again at November the 8th on Tuesday in the next 2 weeks.
What time?
What time?
The
Vincent?
same.
The same?
The
That's
same would be good for me.
okay. Okay, saya bilang.
Karena harus ini dulu, Vincent, kalau pagi-pagi harus ngurus kambing sama ngurus farmnya gitu. Jam 10 baru bisa.
Ini brand gain-nya Belgia nih ya.
Iya.
Orang desa ke kota balik lagi ke desa dia. Saya dans le concept de comment brain gain, c'est quand c'est le villageois qui sort du village, aller à la ville, mais après retourner au village pour développer le village. C'est pas les gens de ville venir au village, mais les gens de village aller au ville, retourner c'est le brain gain. C'est comme vous.
Yeah. And that's very important. And that's a bit what Van der Kloeke describes in China. The trend of China as well. Is this going and back and further? It's really important to bring new ideas, but also broadening the network and the connections like we did in Wageningen. It's really, really important.
Okay, bravo.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And see you very soon then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.